All right. Good morning, everybody. I want to talk today about something that has really been an impact on my life and on my family's life. And it's been something that I have really kept under wraps for probably the better part of 4 years now. Only just a very, very few people know that this was even a thing. And I really wasn't going to even ever talk about it because it's confidential. But now I feel like it's the right time to talk about it. So here's what happened. A few weeks ago, there was a news story about 4 officers or 4 deputies from my department that took their own life. Very, very sad situation. And people began to question what is going on in this department, but also there was also a national conversation that was sparked, which basically highlighted all first responders, their mental health in general. And I've been kind of very tight-lipped about the whole thing, but now I'm ready to talk about it, okay? When you have 4 officers from the same department that take their own life in a period of just a few weeks of each other, that raises questions. That is more than just a coincidence. That is more than just a fluke. That is a pattern, okay? And that's what I want to talk to you today about, is your mental health. Now, you may say, Dave, I'm a man. I don't have feelings. I don't have mental health. Why in the world are you talking about this? But I don't care how bad, how strong, how masculine you think you are. You have feelings, and they matter. And it's no good strategy to just look the other way and pretend they're not there, because I'll tell you, that's what I did for many, many years, and it almost cost me my own life, okay? And before I get too far deep in this, I wanted to say this at the very first of the video, but I'll say it now. The next few minutes, it's going to be tough sledding, okay? It's going to be some very hard topics. If you have kids in the room, I advise them to leave because I'm going to be talking candidly about my experience. And if you're sensitive, maybe you've lost a loved one to suicide, this is not a topic that I'm going to beat around the bush on, because it's no good timing for me if I don't speak candidly, okay? The only way that I'm going to have an impact and really hit the nail on the head is if I don't hold back. And I just want to be very clear. People say, well, Dave, aren't you afraid of, like getting days off or disciplinary action or your reputation? Not at all. Not at all, okay? I would rather be thrown into the furnace and yet people see that it's possible to go through the fire and still come out alive than bury my head in the sand, say, you know what, I'm just going to keep it to myself, blah, 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 because that is what perpetuates a decline in mental illness, is that people feel, well, no one's going to understand. If I come out and I say that I'm hurting, or I say that I need help, I'll be burned at the altar. So, my message to anybody listening, if you want to tarnish my reputation, you want to throw me into the fire or discipline me or sanction me, go right ahead. It's all worth it if it just saves one life. And you can take that to the bank. Okay, so let's get into it. In 2009, on my birthday actually, my birthday 2009, I turned 17 years old, and I was up at MD Anderson Hospital. I was 115 pounds, same height as I am now. So if you can imagine me, 70 pounds lighter. And I was just in absolute dire straits. My back was hurting so bad, I couldn't walk. It had been getting progressively worse. And they ran a few tests and they said, Dave, I think you need to call, or they told my mom actually, they said, I think you need to go ahead and call MD Anderson. So we went to MD Anderson and the results came back that I had stage 4 cancer. I had 3 lemon-sized tumors in the small of my back, and that was what was causing my back to hurt. And it was a big problem for me. I did 15 rounds of chemo, lost my hair. I think I have a picture, maybe I'll post it. But I lost my hair, I lost all my physical strength. It was such a horrible thing to have to experience. But today, if you scan my body, there's no evidence of cancer anywhere. I've been back every year, and every time I get the results, your bill of health, your body is completely and utterly normal, and everything is functioning as it should be. Okay? So, let me just put this all together. I had a disease. I was very close to death. I took medicine. Now I'm better. Okay? Now, I did 5 years of patrol from 2013 to 2018. Well, it wasn't quite 2018. Okay, so it was 2013 to like 2019. And then in March 2019, I was reassigned to the Incident Management Unit. For the first time in 5 years, I was sleeping at night, and it was good. And I left because I could see that my mental health was on a decline, okay? And I thought, well, it's just because I'm on night shift and I'm sleeping during the day. Because, see, sleeping during the day is kind of like trying to drive a car with one flat tire. You can do it, but it's never going to be as efficient or as practical as sleeping at night. Your body was designed to sleep at night. Okay, so I said, let me, get out of patrol, because it's very taxing. Most of the time I was meeting people on their very worst day. And so it's hard, but I really chalked it up to, but really the reason why your mental health is in decline is because you're not sleeping at night. So I went to Incident Management Unit, and now I work 2 to 10, so I come home and I go right to bed. And yes, of course I saw an improvement in my mental health, but not nearly as much as I needed. But I tried to ignore it. I said, no one would understand. But the more and more I ignored it, the louder and louder it got, and the more intense it got. And just to be frank with you, I was having, there's a few symptoms that I was having, okay? Now, let me just break it down for you. When you have a cold, what are the common symptoms? Cough, runny nose, sneezing, body aches, low-grade fever, cold sweats, tightness in the chest, right? Do any of those things in and of themselves indicate that you have a common cold? No. Are those symptoms that could be associated with other things? Sure, absolutely. Okay? So just like physical symptoms, when you have mental health symptoms, is it possible that you have PTSD? Sure. Is it possible you have bipolar? Absolutely. Okay? So, and it takes a clinician or a physician to tell you what you have versus this, okay? Because a lot of times, just like you can have cough, runny nose with an ear infection, you can also have cough, runny nose with a cold. So a lot of times these symptoms cross over to each other. So, and I can't speak for your situation if you're struggling, but let me just explain to you my symptoms and then what I did about it, okay? So, I was having hypervigilance, constantly thinking that someone somewhere was going to be coming around the corner and shooting at me, or trying to stab me. Just constantly living on edge, constantly thinking that at any moment the sky is going to fall, or a meteorite is going to fall on top of my car. Hypervigilance, can't relax, anxiety, constantly thinking that at any moment something bad's going to happen. Depression. Man, I'm telling you, some days it was so bad, it took all the effort just to wind myself up, just to have the energy to get out of bed and function properly. Loss of appetite, can't eat. All these things are symptoms that I was having, but the biggest symptom, the absolute elephant in the room, was something that I didn't even know was a thing, and I really didn't know how to deal with it, because I thought if I ever share this candidly, I'll be fit for a straitjacket. That's honestly how I felt. I felt there is no way that I can tell anyone that I'm having to deal with this, because there's just no way that anyone could tell me that and I not immediately call an emergency line and have them committed to a mental hospital. Absolutely no way in the world. What I was having was what they call intrusive thoughts. Intrusive thoughts are about the most insidious symptom that you can imagine, okay? You feel and you have thoughts that are so evil and so dark that you literally think that you have morphed into a demon. Okay, I'll give you an example. I would get ready for work and I'd throw my gun belt on, and I'd have a thought that would say, hey, why don't you take your gun out of your holster and put it to your head and pull the trigger? Why don't you do that? Or another one that happened more than one time. Matthew had when I was watching him in the mornings before I would drop him off with his care person, I'd be, grab the diaper bag, grab a bottle or whatever, but I'd already have my gun belt on. I'd be already about to walk out the door, and he'd have a dirty diaper, so I'd lay him on the floor, and as I'm changing him, a voice in my head said, hey, Dave, you got your gun in your holster. Why don't you just take your gun out and pull point it at the baby and pull the trigger? Now, this is my child, okay? And I want to make one thing absolutely clear. I have never tried anything, and I have never even thought about doing something like that, okay? I cannot overemphasize this. I was probably the safest person to be around, because I would be so afraid of these thoughts that I was having in my head that I would put stopgaps in my procedures of what I think, because I was so afraid that, well, if I'm having these thoughts, then that somehow means that I have like a desire to do these things. And so I would lock my gun in a safe and then put that safe in another safe. I mean, I would, because I was so worried that if I'm having these thoughts, then that means that I must be a serial killer. I just, haven't killed yet. And intrusive thoughts will take anyone who is sane and rational and make them think that they are working for the devil. And I wasn't educated in intrusive thoughts. I didn't know what those were. I just thought, okay, I'm having these intrusive thoughts, so that must mean that I'm just, a bad, evil person. And just like you have a cough, you have a runny nose, it could be an indicator that you have earache or strep throat or a cold. When you have intrusive thoughts, that doesn't necessarily mean that you have PTSD, but it is certainly an indicator, just like you have a cough that you can't shake, that is certainly an indicator that somehow down the line your mental health is in tatters, or there's something going wrong with your mental health. And just like when I had cancer, okay, well, I'm getting too ahead of myself. So what do? I go and I speak out because I knew that I needed help. No, because like you and like everybody else in this world, I'm a man. Okay, I don't need a therapist. Okay, I've got this all square. Okay, what do people that have PTSD do? Well, they're given emotional support animals. So if it works for them, it'll work for me. So my solution was, I don't need therapy. I don't need to speak to someone. All I need is a dog that I can love and a dog that will love me back. So sure enough, that's what I did. And I actually went and I got 2 Labradors. I think I have a picture. Maybe I'll post it. And so I went and got 2 Labradors. And they were so sweet. They were such sweet animals. I mean, I can't say enough good things about them, and I wish I still had them running around some days. Other days, I'm glad that my backyard isn't full of manure. But that's neither here nor there. I got the dogs as a Band-Aid or a quick fix, do-it-yourself kind of just, slap a Band-Aid on it solution, because I was afraid to speak out. Okay? Only problem was, now I have 2 kids. I have 2 puppies that are less than a year old. I'm the only one working. And I'm having to potty train these dogs. And I'm having to clean up their accidents inside. And I'm having to change diapers. And what was intended to be something that would relieve my stress and improve my mental health ended up having the opposite effect. And it made me spiral even more. And one day it got to a head. Aaron was just absolutely sick of the dogs. I was sick of the dogs. It was every night I would go to bed, I would just white knuckle and just fight the urge to hurt myself. And the people around you, they know that you're struggling. You can't. I heard about this company, just real quick. I heard about this company who had this toxic waste that they had to deal with. But the problem was, no one had ever dealt with anything that toxic, that volatile. They didn't know what to do with it. They called in some experts and people to look at it and different things. And so they decided, well, the best thing to do would just be to take these barrels of this toxic waste, put them in a large container like a big metal container like you see on a ship, and then seal that up very tightly and then bury it underground. They took great measure to make sure it's all sealed up good and wrapped, 4 or 5 times with cellophane or whatever they did to it. And then they dug a hole and they buried it. 40 years later, this company they did some testing. People started dying and getting very, very ill in that immediate neighborhood, and cancers and just all sorts of just, real bad medical ailments. And so they did some testing, and they found out that these containers were leaking. And now this company, 40 years later, was charged with digging these containers up and cleaning up the mess. They never imagined that they would have to deal with this problem again, but this time it's worse. Okay? So it's the same thing with your mental health. You can't bury it underground and think it's not going to affect you. Okay? You can't bury, intrusive thoughts and hypervigilance and think that that's not going to affect the people around you, because your mental health, it leaks out. It permeates every area of your life. So my dad calls me and he says, Dave, your life is in tatters. I really don't understand why you don't want to get rid of the dogs. Please explain to me why you don't want to get rid of the dogs. And I said, well, Dad, the truth is, just about every 5 minutes of my life, I'm having these really wicked, sick thoughts. And I really don't know how to deal with it. And I'm struggling. I'm white knuckling every night just to stay alive. And I don't know what to do. And you're the first person I've told. And he said, Dave, you need help, like serious help. I said, you think so? He goes, I know so. He said, I know someone who's helped me. I think that they can help you. If you do me a favor, just sit tight, let me talk to her in the morning, and then as soon as I talk to her, I'll touch base with you. And just a footnote, if you do need therapy, whatever it is, I will pay the cost. As your father, I will move heaven and earth for you and your kids if I knew that it would improve their life even just 1 inch. I'll move heaven and earth. So if you need help, if you need therapy, I am willing to write the check for it. So he calls me in the morning, and I explain to the clinician what was going on, and her sweet lady named Ginger Pogue. I think I have a picture of her right here. But she explained to me what was going on, and she said, Dave, what you're experiencing is a dime a dozen. What you're going through is so common. I wish I could tell you how often people come into my office dealing with the very thing that you're dealing with. And the story is the same thing over and over and over again. I've been struggling with this for a year, 2 years, 10 years. Because I just didn't know what intrusive thoughts were. I didn't know how to navigate this. I knew there was a problem, but I felt like if I spoke out, then people would want to have me committed, and then I wouldn't be able to work my job. I'd lose my job, and then there goes my income, and then I'd be worse off than if I'd never spoke out. And all these things would just trickle down, and my life would be in tatters. She said, but you know what? This is the first step in getting you back together. Humpty Dumpty sat on a porch. Humpty Dumpty fell off, and I am going to help you put it back together. And so for about 3 months, every week, I went and I did EMDR. EMDR, what is that? I've never heard of that. EMDR, eye movement desensitization reprocessing. Okay? It's a really funny word to basically say that some guy somehow, I don't have a bunch of letters behind my name, but basically, when you have a traumatic experience, you see things. Maybe you saw someone take their last breath. Maybe you had to dive at the bottom of a pool and grab a 9-month-old baby. Whatever it is, your mind takes that situation takes that circumstance and it gets planted in your mind. And you have flashbacks, you have cold sweats, you have all the things that I mentioned, because basically in your mind, that traumatic experience is stuck in that part of the brain that can't tell time. Things that happened to you 10 years ago are just like they're happening to you today. Your mind, for whatever reason, your mind has got that memory stuck in a place that it doesn't need to be. So when you have EMDR, so neuroplasticity is just a fancy word that basically says that the different parts of your brain are connected, right? I'm waving my right hand, it's controlled by the left side of my brain. I'm waving my left hand, it's controlled by the right side of my brain, okay? And there are a lot of things that the brain does to try to help itself, but it doesn't know how. And that's one thing that the research really, the brain is such an amazing organ. When you're having these traumatic things that are stuck that part of the brain wants to help itself. It wants to move on. It knows that it's in disrepair, but it doesn't know how. So what does eye movement desensitization reprocessing do? Well, basically they take that memory and with your eyes are connected to your memory chain. And so what they'll do is they'll have you either listen to a sound, or you'll watch dots on a screen. And you'll watch them go back and forth as you're thinking of the traumatic event. It doesn't happen overnight, but over time, that sound, that eye movement is linked to your memory chain, and your brain begins to understand the connection between that traumatic experience and where it is in the brain, and it begins to desensitize you and reprocesses it into a different part of the brain where your long-term memory is stored. The things that I had bothering me, the things that I was having flashbacks with, the things that were making me so anxious and have intrusive thoughts were getting replayed over and over and over again before I got help. I got help, and now I can think about them. Even now I can think about them, but they're a memory. They're no longer like they're still happening to me today. They are there. I know they're there. They're sad things that I had to experience. They're hard things that I had to go through. But that was then. This is now. And now that I've gotten help, I don't go to the doctor anymore. Okay? Just like when I had cancer. I had cancer. I had a big problem. I was very close to death. But I took medicine. I took treatments. And now I don't have to go back. I'm good. I am totally free and clear of any cancer in my body. Same thing with my mental health. I had a problem. My mental health was in tatters. I was very close to death. I took treatments. And now I'm better. I hadn't been to Miss Ginger in at least 2 years. Okay? Am I better off? Am I more suited in the future if, God forbid, something happens? Absolutely I am. Okay? One thing that I want to drive home is, as a man to man, okay? Emotions are like kids, okay? You don't want them driving your car, but you don't want to stuff them in the trunk either, okay? Turning your head and looking the other way is not going to fool you, and it's not going to fool those around you, okay? People are intelligent creatures. I mean, people understand other people, and those closest to you know if you're struggling. And I implore you with every fiber of my being, don't go through life trying to white knuckle it and try to look the other way and pretend it's not there, because all you're doing is you're doing a disservice to your family, to your friends, but not only that, the big loser in that equation is you. You're doing yourself, it hurts you more than anything. It hurts you most to try to navigate and go through life when you're hurting. Okay? You don't get to press reset. There's no, when you're on your deathbed, you don't get to click a button and say, yeah, you know what, let me go rewind back to when I was 28, so I don't have to go the next 50 years with this mental hurt, this mental thing that I'm dealing with, And someone listening right now, someone hearing this is going through a mental health ailment, having the symptoms that I just talked about. And they're thinking, I don't know, man, but it's not going to get better over time. I mean, trust me. Take it from me. If there's anybody that you should listen to, take it from me. I already tried that. It doesn't work. It doesn't get better over time. It only gets worse. Okay? So, deal with it. Face the music and deal with it. Now to part 2 of this video, my thoughts on the 4 officers at the sheriff's department. First of all, it's sad. I mean, if I saw any of their family members in person, I wouldn't even know what to say, other than I'm sorry. I'll be praying for you. That is a tough deal to lose a loved one. But then the question is, why didn't they get help? Why didn't they utilize the behavioral health division, all the resources that they tell us about? And why didn't you? Why did you go through an outside person? Okay, so, before I even start, I just want to make one thing clear. Okay, like it says in Galatians, Paul says, am I your enemy because I tell you the truth? Okay, I didn't say that. The Bible said that. Okay, so I don't want to be unkind to anybody, but I do want to speak truthfully and candidly. Okay. I don't know at the sheriff's office what exactly they do at the behavioral health division. I believe that in the 11 years that I've been with the department, it has improved significantly. But I still think that there are people that are hesitant, that would seek help for themselves, but they have a few reservations, okay? And I can't speak for anybody, but I'll just give mine. First of all, I've heard through the grapevine that if you call that number that they post up at every station, if you call them on Wednesday and you say, hey, I'm dealing with this, can I get help? Can I talk to someone? Blah, 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 blah. They say, oh yeah, man, that's so courageous of you, man. I wish more people would take the first step, man. That's great. Yeah, come on, let's make an appointment for Thursday. Okay, so you call on Wednesday. Now you go and you sit and talk to them on Thursday, and then on Friday, you get a call from some number at HR or some maybe the captain or whoever it might be calls you and says, "Hey, Dave." "Oh, hey, what's going on?" "Hey, man, hey, do me a favor. We need, we've heard some things, and you know, I really don't want to go into it, but we need you to take all your uniforms and your gun belt and your badge, come to this address and drop it off. You're going to be on desk duty, you know, until further notice. But you're not in trouble. But we can't have you, you know, doing whatever you do, just, you know, because of your situation." "I thought you said this was confidential." So now you do the courageous thing and you try to seek help for yourself, but now you're on transitional duty. You can't work out in the streets or wherever it might be. You can't even put your uniform on. Oh, and by the way, you can't work extra jobs. Now, I'm going to put a graph here. I just want everybody to show you. When I was a deputy, before I promoted, I was making $8,600 a month. $8,600. 3,000 of that was my check from the sheriff's office. Okay? I just want you to post. I just want you to see this graph here. Look at that. Look how much of that diagram, look how much of that is income from extra jobs. Now, take all that away and just have the wedge there. Can you pay your bills? If you take your monthly income, whether you have your income or you have combined incomes, whatever it is, take the number that you're bringing, you and your spouse, or maybe just you, is bringing home every month, and then take away that blue, or that whatever color it is, I haven't decided, but whatever color that is, and just leave yourself with that small wedge. Can you pay your bills on that small wedge? So you have this person who has to make a choice. If I speak out, yes, my mental health might be better, but everybody at the station is going to be asking why I'm on desk duty. Why did he have to turn his uniforms in? But not only that, you're also going to be living in poverty. Friends, that's a hard pill to swallow. That is a hard choice to make. You're telling me that if I speak out, I'm going to be living in poverty, all my friends are going to be talking about me, and I can't do the job that I love? That's a high price to pay. And so I think the reason why the mental health division, behavioral health division, is so underutilized is because people are fear of being stigmatized. They don't want people asking questions, but probably the biggest one is that they don't want anyone to mess with their income. I mean, I know I can't make my bills on just straight checks. And so, you know, it's a big problem for them, and that's why it's so underutilized. So, you know, like I said, I feel for anyone that is struggling, and I certainly feel for the families of these 4 officers. But looking ahead, one thing that would help more people speak out is the absolute assurance that they are not going to be told on, that they can go speak to someone and they'll still be, if they have to speak to someone on Thursday morning and they're supposed to work 2 to 10 on Thursday, they will go to their appointment, they will speak to someone, no one will ever find out, and they will still be in the car at 2 o'clock on Thursday, that same day, no one is going to try to jack with them and their job, and they will absolutely, most assuredly, still be allowed to work extra jobs. If they're provided that guarantee, I guarantee you, you will see an absolute substantial increase on the people that are willing to reach out for help. Anyways, that's really all I have to say about that. I appreciate you guys for listening, sticking with me, and yeah, we will see you on the next one.